You're listening to the Clutter Fairy Weekly, a weekly webcast and podcast brought to you by the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas. If you'd like to participate in one of our live webcasts, please visit cfhou.com/weekly. You'll find a calendar of upcoming webcasts, as well as instructions for joining the Zoom meeting via the app or by phone. We'd love to see you. That URL again is cfhou.com/weekly. Now here's the weekly episode. Enjoy.
Hi, Clutter Fairy fans. This is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for November 11th, 2025. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas.
Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is the webcast and podcast that digs deep into the clutter that piles up between you and the life that you want to be living. We explore the habits and behaviors that lead to clutter, and we suggest strategies to slow the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we decide to keep.
If you're new to our Zoom meeting, we want to let you know that you can share your comments and questions via the chat, and I'll try to make sure Gayle addresses them before we move on to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video. And we are streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can share your questions and comments there, and I'll relay them to Gayle. We're going to start by talking about last week's weekly tittle, which was called Lessons to Keep. The assignment was to reflect on what you've learned from your decluttering journey as fuel to maintain your commitment to your ongoing projects. Let's hear from our participants in Zoom and on Facebook who searched for lessons from their past this week. Please let us know in the comments. YouTube viewer TrueMax33 shared a lesson from the past that informs her current life. TrueMax writes, "The last time I moved, back from a temporary relocation several years ago, I was aggravated by several boxes of stuff I had moved to and back more than once. That's when I decided I didn't just have stuff, the stuff had me. No matter how well it was organized and inventoried, that's where my decluttering journey started."
So glad you caught that and made a shift of thought there. No point in moving things more than once if you don't ever need them. Moving boxes back and forth means that stuff is probably long past necessary in your life. And check out those boxes and the contents. You have no idea what was happening when those boxes were packed, so you don't actually know what's in there 100%. But after that, it's time to release those anchors. So many times I go in, and part of clearing out the closet or clearing out the hall closet or working in the garage is finding the last 10 boxes that never got unpacked from the move when somebody moved into that house. And it's always a joke how many years have gone by since the boxes went out there and never got opened, right? It's like, oh my gosh, how long have those been there? Oh, a decade. Okay, yeah, we probably should open those now and see what's in there. And it's always a surprise. People always think they know what's in there, and then it turns out there's something else in there they didn't realize. And they end up keeping 2% of the contents, and the rest of it goes out for a donation, which is why I always find them, focus on them, and make sure we empty them, because it's always a collection of things that have been there so long, and you really can release them. And the thought that you have in your mind of what's actually in those boxes never 100% matches what you think it is. And sometimes it's complete, like you think it's A and it's completely B, or it's mostly A, but there's 25% of it that's B. And so there's always something in those boxes that have been left for so long that you can just release. And it's a good collection of things to recognize you've been holding on long enough and it's time to let go. So good job on you. What was her name?
TrueMax.
TrueMax. Good job, TrueMax, for figuring that out and letting it start your decluttering journey. It was a perfect place to start.
I like this one a lot too, because it I joke all the time that my vision was the first thing to go as I got older, and I forget what the second thing was. And I read an article this week about, recent research into the fallibility of human memory. And we all think, our natural tendency is to think of memory as this sort of recording, VCR type recording of what happened.
Yes.
And of course, it's not like that at all. It's entirely colored by what the mood we were in at the time the thing happened and the level of excitement.
How much
Um,
alcohol we had.
right. How sad we, whether we'd spent that morning crying before we packed those boxes, whatever,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so what we think is in those boxes, it's almost safe to say will not be what's in there at all.
It's not gonna live up to the memory hype that you have in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally true. And they're boxes. You get them mixed up, right? You
Right.
think you are remembering a box, and that box may have existed at some point during the move, and you forgot that that's the box that you actually unpacked, and the one that you actually have is something completely different, and you've just switched them around in your head. And so there's no telling what's in there. And you don't want to be throwing out the original Social Security card or something, right? Like you want to make sure there's nothing hiding in there that got thrown at the last minute or got used to fill up space so that the box didn't get crushed or whatever. But I had a box at the move. I don't remember, I said this earlier, I'm sure, but at the last minute, I realized that there's this little closet that was in the old kitchen that we hadn't opened and packed. And so my friend came over and it was the day before the move or 2 days before the move or something. And she I was like, "Oh my God, we missed packing this." And so she started packing it and she labeled the boxes something like miss unknown closet or miss closet or something. It was, is there, like she didn't know what it was. And so she just sort of said, "Here, this is the black hole that we found at the last minute," was basically
Yeah.
how she labeled the box. And so when I opened it, I was like, well, I don't know what this is. I gotta, this label tells me nothing. I gotta figure that one out. You never know what you're gonna find in those boxes, especially at the
It's
tail end when everybody's scrambling to get finished and is hot and tired and miserable.
Jacqueline gives a tittle report. She says, I gave away some outdoor flower pots that I no longer needed.
Mm,
And she went on to say, in a recent discussion, Ed mentioned the book GTD, Getting Things Done.
yeah.
I was curious about it, so I read it this week.
Oh,
While the book is not about decluttering, it can certainly be used to organize decluttering projects, and so far I'm finding it very helpful. I'd already been using lists for things like grocery shopping and managing chores and cleaning tasks, and this works very well for me. I decided to follow the book's advice and have started using lists for other to-do items as well.
awesome.
Great to hear.
Yeah, I think that the piece of information that I use the most often out of that book is sorting tasks based on the location of execution.
The context.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so things that you have to do at the computer are on a to-do list for the computer. Things that you have to do as that are errands that you're going to go run out in the car, you're not going to be in the house, are on a list by themselves as, to do the errands. And things that you're going to do where you have to make phone calls are on a list to call so that you batch them based on how you're going to do them. When you're, out in the house running around, you're not going to be able to fold the laundry, for instance, at home.
Right,
And when you're
right.
at home, you're not going to be able to, purchase something that you need at the store. So concentrating those lists based on where you are means that you can focus on the items that you can accomplish where you are. And I thought that was, I had never thought to do that with to-do lists before. And I thought that was a brilliant adaptation that he introduced that made those task lists so much more effective to me.
For me, I think it was just the general theme of uh, your brain is for having ideas, not for storing them.
Yes. Yes.
Because our
Yeah.
brains are these, idea generating machines, and they crank out thousands a day, and some of them are worth keeping, and some of them are not. And so GTD is kind of a set of tools for
Capture.
capturing and deciding whether to keep all the things you think about.
Right. And and to be recognizing that your brain doesn't have the ability to set priorities in your like as you it doesn't remember things in a priority order.
Right.
Right.
There's
It
no
just
correlation
randomly
between
yes. Yeah.
how truly important something is and how much angst it will give you.
And how much you remember it or not, right? Like
Right,
the your
right. How
but your
much,
brain just randomly remembers stuff, and some of it's important and some of it isn't. And thinking that your mind is going to store the priorities and remember them in priority is a fallacy. And so you have to have the list to create the priority, and that was that was a important point of view as well from him. It's a time and task management, project management um, system that he's devised.
Yeah.
And basically it's like how to manage your task and keep up with them and not lose track of them and execute them in order of priority for your life and your work and et cetera, et cetera. And we've
We obviously both enthusiastically recommend it.
yeah,
We
we
also
actually
both we took a train like
we
a
took our
day
class.
long training in it in where San Antonio, I
Yeah,
think.
back in the day.
Right? But it's
That's
been a
been a
little
minute.
while.
Right, right. it
Okay,
was it was good.
C says, past, I only kept items I loved, so there wasn't a constant need to change or update. I donated or gave out any unused items. Oh,
that's
M
that's super
mentioned
helpful.
on the unmarked boxes, M mentioned unmarked boxes swap identities at night.
That's a great way to think of it. They're out there swapping identities. They're moving
That seems
around when you're not looking.
that seems entirely plausible based on contents of boxes I've unpacked.
Mhm.
I think we should go on with the main topic. What do you think?
Okay.
It's easy to get swept up and carried away by the excitement of the holiday season, but as we prepare for this busy time of family, fun, and celebration, let's reflect on our feelings of gratitude and how they impact the way we accumulate, manage, and dispose of our stuff. Today, we're going to examine the role of gratitude in our decision making and in the work of decluttering and organizing.
A big way that I support my clients along their journey to recover their spaces and find peace in their home is what I call me being a cheerleader. I do my best to offer a positive voice, to reflect supportive feedback, to reframe things in a language that feels encouraging. Most clients have a lifetime of negative messaging coming from themselves and from others about how they're failing at life because their spaces are out of control. And I try to be the antidote to those messages, offering a new voice against what's been sounding for so many years before. So many of those messages are negative and they're not really based in reality. And even so, we internalize those negative voices. We're all adding those, holding on to, believing those negative voices. And my job is to offer another message in a positive form so that you can internalize something encouraging instead. I say all that so you can understand why I wanted to talk about gratitude. This is positive messaging that you can do for yourself anytime. You can consciously choose to reframe something in a supportive way, and it can be just as true as anything negative that you've been holding on to before this. Make the choice to see it in an uplifting way and give yourself that break and that support. This time of year is when we culturally turn to gratitude. So, in the spirit of the season, find some things to express gratitude about, especially related to your organization and decluttering efforts. Ed did a really great job of framing questions that you can easily answer from a grateful point of view. And we offered those questions in our survey. So let's see how you wrote some statements of gratitude for yourself this week.
Okay, we for our first question, we asked our audience to express your gratitude for something in your home that you intend to keep indefinitely. How does it support the life you love? And this seems like an obvious one, and of course people do come in with some of the very obvious answers like, I'm going to go ahead and keep my family. I'm going to go ahead and keep
Right?
my bed.
Right.
But we get some less obvious ones too. Noreen says, statue my grandmother had of an Irish policeman. My mother kept it when she died, and my mother's sister kept it when my mom passed away. My aunt, the last surviving member of that side of the family, passed 2 years ago, and my cousin saved it for me. Makes me smile each time I see it.
That's a lot of memory passing through many women in your family. I can feel the through line for sure. I can see why you smile when you look at it, and that's how you should feel about everything in your house. That the fact that you look at that and you smile and you think of all those women in your past, that's the exact kind of thing you want to have in your house. So good job. I'm glad you have it.
Therese Marie says, my race shirts and trophies from SUP Racing. I had to look that up. I was like, what is SUP Racing? Stand-up paddleboard
Oh,
racing.
okay.
I remember the challenges leading to winning against all odds. Seeing them makes me live the period again and again.
That really sounds special. You remember the struggle and the reward both. and it provides memories that can give you empowering feelings each time you think of them. You can recall those experiences and be really grateful for living them and remembering them. I really like the idea of I did this, I did it in a competitive way. I had to train and become an expert. I had to struggle and grow and enhance my skills. And so she's describing how she remembers all of the things that went into doing and being that person and arriving in that place of getting awards and being successful at it. And I think that's really awesome. And that sounds like a perfect thing to be grateful for the experience. You're grateful to be able to see those things and remember them. And I thought that was lovely. Perfect thing to be grateful for.
Becky says, I'm thankful for a table that we purchased last year for our new home. It's a user-friendly, cluttered kitchen table. We sit here every day with our grandchildren and do a myriad of things, including sitting in Poppy's lap to watch videos, eating
Oh,
meals, doing homework, art projects, and prayers together. It's getting dirty as we have toddlers, but life is good and the table can be cleaned.
I love that description so much. You love that table because of all the loving family moments that are taking place around that table. Really get why you feel grateful for it. And I can totally see the little kid sitting in Poppy's lap watching the videos. That makes perfect sense. And how great that that piece of furniture became a part of your family life and you guys are enjoying it and making use of it every day. And that's awesome.
Well, and it's all about her, her appreciation of it is all about how well it supports their life,
Yes, exactly. It's doing what it needs to do.
which is what we're looking for from our stuff.
100%.
Carla says, as long as I can read and hear the photos and recordings of my son and grandsons.
Oh,
That
that's the love of grandma.
right?
That gratitude for family that you really love is so important. And being able to see the photos and hear recordings, like now you can be taking videos and you can have the sight and sound of your little grandkids I mean, you can have that forever when they're way past being adults. You can still play that video, which is awesome. The things that we can do now that we couldn't do back in the day. So I'm that's really wonderful.
CEE, that
Yeah.
is is grateful for a secretary desk. As I declutter, it offers the right amount of organization and workspace for monthly work. Best part, I can close it and paperwork is out of sight. Peaceful. I would only need one or two storage bins for items not needed on a regular basis.
Isn't it great when you have the piece of furniture that works for you and does what it needs to do? Good workspace with ability to stash things away when not in use. You got to love something that functions really well like that. And it sounds like for the look that you want and the functionality that you want, this desk is doing exactly what it needs to do in your house. And so that's the kind of furniture you want to have in the house. It needs to be something that is supporting your life and providing you with something that you need to use and do in the space. And that's awesome.
Sarah says, I have a bunch of cool glass jars from when my grandma passed away. They're useful and I get to be reminded of her daily.
Just the way that you wrote this sounds like you're smiling as you write it. It's a cool thing to be grateful for. Grandma had glass jars and they remind you of her and you're using them every day and that's awesome. That's the kind of stuff you want in the house, right? You want things that reflect love and good memories and make you feel good about the stuff that's in your space.
Ellen says, my now small collection of favorite kids' books. It brings back memories of sharing those stories with my kids and as a conversation starter with my grandkids and some visitors. I cut my CD collection by more than half, but don't plan to go any further for some time. It's a very eclectic collection, and much of it is no longer available anywhere. I live alone now, so I can blast music and sing along while I cook or do dishes with no one to object.
That sounds perfect. You have things you're enjoying in your house and soundtracks to back you up while you do chores, plus the kid books that you can still relate to in a loving way. Those are all perfect things to have in the house. And I love it that I have a CD collection and I'm playing it while I'm doing chores, I'm listening, I'm singing along and making myself happy. And isn't that the whole point of having that kind of stuff? So good job.
Okay, the next survey question we asked our viewers and listeners was to describe someone or something that has helped you on your decluttering and organizing journey. This may be an idea, a story, a book, a person, a resource, etc. And Lisa's response was, the main thing that has helped in decluttering is a feeling or the need for lightness. I will feel or sense that there is just too much. I need space and air to mentally breathe.
It's really great that you have an internal warning system that you can respond to when there's too much stuff in your environment. That's really helpful because it's telling you to take care of yourself. And if you're listening and noticing when you have that sense of there's too much here, this is going to be too overwhelming, we're reaching my threshold, then you can respond and you can make sure that you don't get to a place where it's super overwhelming or shutting you down. I think that's really awesome.
I like this response too. I like Lisa's response because it reflects it's sort of an um, the idea that animates her decluttering and organizing. You know, that she's committed to this feeling that is the goal. You know,
Right? That
that
she
this
feels
she
comfortable.
wants to feel a lightness in the space and
Hmm.
the space and air to mentally breathe.
And notices it when it doesn't feel right. So
Yeah.
you're right, it is totally based on how it feels to her. And so doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, doesn't matter anybody else's perception, doesn't matter the reality of the stuff. If she doesn't feel good in her space, then she's responding to that change in feeling. And that's really about taking care of herself. It's wonderful.
It's sort of a she sort of created like a touchstone for
Yeah,
herself,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
this is what I come back to is this feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Barbara said next to the Clutter Fairy, Shannon Torrens, Torrens, decluttering suggestions on YouTube are very helpful. I especially enjoy seeing her help her mother declutter.
I
Go
wasn't
ahead.
familiar with Shannon. Are you familiar?
No, I wasn't. I had not run across her before. That's one of the reasons I wanted to include this question is we get uh, tips for
Yeah,
other
other people.
organizers and resources that we haven't run into before. And so that's kind
Yeah,
of cool.
so Shannon Torrance apparently does
Yeah.
videos about helping her mother declutter. So I'm sure those are super helpful to watch.
And then this is letter C, found a psychologist, Nina Lavon on YouTube. Nena, N-E-N-A, or Nena or
Yeah,
Nina
yeah.
Lavon, Lavonne, on YouTube, who also has ADHD, and she has short videos on decluttering challenges.
That has got to be super helpful. A therapist who's also dealing with ADHD, that's perfect. I'm sure she's very relatable. That'll help. That's help that really deserves gratitude. I'm sure that anybody who is trying to deal with ADHD, it's hard to describe, but they can listen to someone else who is also coming from that point of view and really make a difference. And actually, one of my clients yesterday just told me about an ADD show on Sirius XM. Um, it's a talk show, and God, I can't remember the name. She told me the name, and I can't remember it. Anyway, there's some show on AD on Sirius XM,
Okay.
so radio in the car, and it's a couple of people who are talking about how they experience ADHD in the world and what it looks like and what it feels like to them. And she said that she felt heard for the first time. Like they were describing how ADHD was challenging for them and how it interrupted their lives. And she said, I felt like they were describing my life, and that for the first time, I knew that someone else understood how I was struggling. And I think that that is important for somebody that's got ADHD to hear from other people who are having the same experience you are so that you understand that it really is not just you, right? Anyway, glad you
Let
found that resource.
let me know if you come across that. If you can
Yeah, yeah.
remember the name, share it with me. I'm going to put show note in. I'll put in the show notes for today links to anyone we've mentioned that we hadn't mentioned here before.
Yeah, I should send her a note.
Um, I want to share a comment from Therese Marie, who's with us on Facebook. She is the one who talked about keeping her uh, shirts and trophies. And she says, I kept the stuff in 2 boxes and don't know where or how to display so it's not overwhelming.
Oh, well, um, so I would select the best pieces of the stuff. Like you don't have to display all of it, but display a portion of it. And you might find a bookshelf. They also make freestanding shelves that you can hang directly on the wall, just to have a little display, or a cabinet if you think that if there's a lot of like stand-up trophies or things where you want to be able to, stand them up and look at them.
And for t-shirts, they make some nice t-shirt frames specifically
Mm-hmm.
to sort of feature the artwork on the front of a race shirt or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So you can pick your favorite one,
Yeah, unless you also like to wear it.
right?
Your favorite
It,
one that you don't wear.
that you don't want to put on, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And go about the business of getting that framed. I mean, that's something that you can take to a Michael's frame shop, and I'm sure they've framed other
Oh yeah.
clothing and t-shirts before. So you can, it'll cost you some money, but it'll create an art piece that's specific to you that you can hang on the wall and look at. And if you hang something on the wall and you also have a little display cabinet, or you have shelves on the wall where you put up some of the awards, um, maybe some of those shelves that you put on the wall, they're just a few inches deep. They might be 3 or 4 inches deep, and so they're just long, narrow railing basically that you can stand things up on to look at. And so get one of your friends that's more decorative minded to come and help you, and you guys can sort of plan a location on the wall where that stuff gets placed, or you can find a bookcase where you can install some of it in front of some of the books so you can look at it. You just need a little bit of decorating help from one of your friends that feels comfortable with that. Let them come and help you. And like I said, you don't have to do it all.
Tressmer added there are about 60 shirts.
Yeah, we can't display 60 shirts. That's
No, no.
100% true.
Some of them may have to settle for storing and wearing till you wear them
Right.
out.
With 60 shirts, you can actually uh, hire somebody to cut those up and make them into a quilt if you'd like. I mean, it's possible that the t-shirts can become a quilt topper, and they probably won't need 60 of them. So you would probably, you might need 20 or 25 of them to make the quilt topper. So you'd have to pick a portion of them to make into a blanket. But if you live somewhere where you have a quilt on the bed some part of the year because it's cold, might be worth it for you to be able to look at it. All these things are things that, we're all talking about things that cost you to money to go make it happen. But if you do that a little bit over time, you can eventually get some things up that remind you of your time and allow you to look at them, and create a focal point in your house that has some things up on the wall for you to look at, or up on a shelf.
Okay, a couple more resources that people are grateful for. Carla says, "I'm grateful to you, but I also like the space maker April." And I looked her up. That's April Scott Tandy. Are you familiar with her?
April Scott Tandy. Not recognizing that
She's
one.
her business is the space maker.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Carla says she shows how it really is when decluttering.
Mm.
Sarah says the Clutter Fairy,
Thank you so much.
also Dana K. White and the Clutterbug podcast all work together to be supportive from multiple angles.
Really grateful right back for that. Thank you. Especially to be in such esteemed company as Miss Dana Kay. We're absolutely trying to support you on your journey, and so we appreciate that we're part of that team. Thank you.
Selena says Clutter Fairy podcasts when I have to clean my house and focus with Gail and Ed on my headphones. My she goes on to thank my mom who's patiently storing my college books and dolls for sale or flipping. I'll
Okay.
pick something up from her in 2 weeks when I go to visit her. My sister when she lived with me and questioned my keep choices. My male cousin who has been accompanying me in my slow decluttering journey. His mom is a hoarder. It runs in the family. So we are like accountability buddies who share our small successes of decluttering.
That's wonderful. That sounds like you have a whole team of support out there. That's really awesome. Some who are helping to store things, who challenge your decisions, who provide accountability. We're really happy to be part of your team, and it sounds like you've tapped all kinds of resources out there, and it's great that you have them. I see why you feel grateful because that's a lot of support in all kinds of angles on your decluttering journey. That's awesome.
Leela says, my mother and I are a dynamic decluttering duo. It's dangerous to leave the two of us alone in one of our houses. LOL.
I thought that was funny when I read it the first time. Being part of a team that work well together makes it so much easier to get stuff done. So that is a thing to be grateful for. It's, not everybody can do this work with their mother. Like I
Right.
have like that has been a sticking point for many a client of mine. Like trying to have their mother or their sister come and help them, and it's just like I can't deal with mom when I'm so the fact that you can work together with her with on it and the two of you guys can help each other, that's awesome.
Well,
Count,
and
count yourself lucky.
I she when she says it's dangerous to leave the two of us alone in one of our houses, that's it's great to find someone who really embraces and supports what you have decided to commit to doing.
Mm,
To have that kind of support is really
yeah.
wonderful.
And that it's clearly she implies that it's fun, that they're having time together, they're doing a good job, they're accomplishing what they want. And that's really a relationship to be grateful for sure.
Danetta says, I'm grateful for my husband's patience.
Mm.
I hired an organizer to help with papers and bags and boxes, but it was an agonizing process that I never wanted to repeat. Little by little, and revisiting previously decluttered piles and folders works best for me. I'm slower, but I don't just file papers. I have time to think about and discard papers as well. I've read almost every book and listened to almost every podcast on decluttering. They were helpful, but perhaps the most helpful was just getting older and realizing that the time for some potential interests and hobbies had passed. Giving up multi-potentiality was hard for me, but I am a realist.
Many of the listeners and viewers will envy your husband's
Darn
patience
right,
for
yes.
sure. Like straight off the bat, they're going to be really envious that your husband is patient with you. That's wonderful. And I'm grateful for your shift in perspective that allows you to release some things that are no longer needed. Like that's important that you change your point of view and realize, okay, all these potentials I don't need to keep things against all these potentials anymore. I'm old enough to recognize that I'm not going to accomplish the millions of things that my brain, the ideas that my brain came up with and continues to come up with. And so filtering some out, releasing some, knowing more are going to come back. I think people think that they're going to give away all their potentials and then their brain's going to have nothing to think
You'll
about.
have nothing to work with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, that's never going to happen. So don't worry about it. And good for you that you figured it out and you're doing it at a pace. I will say that I think when I work with paper with people, I can always go much faster than they can. And so it's my job to match their ability to process paper and data and slow down enough that I'm not making you feel run over by the paper train. Like I think it's important to bite through paper at a pace that doesn't choke you. And so I'm sorry that it was a little bit overwhelming when you had organizer support. And I'm glad you figured out that you can do it yourself at a slower pace and be more comfortable with the movement there. And good job.
Okay, let's see. Johanna says, the Clutter Fairy and the Clutter Fairy's little helper, Ed, of course.
If you only knew that my little helper Ed is actually over 6 feet tall, he's not so little anymore.
Also, Marie Kondo in a huge way.
Mm.
When I left my husband, I moved from an 1,100 square foot apartment into a 110 foot, yes, shoebox apartment in an attic. I had to
Oh,
get rid of 90% of my things, and the KonMari method helped me decide on what to keep. I could not have done this huge adjustment so painlessly without it. I especially love it because it applies to anyone in any life circumstances.
thank you, Johanna. That's very lovely of you to mention us. And what a journey you've been on. I'm glad that those resources were really helpful to you in making such a big lifestyle change. Moving from 1,100 square feet to 110 square feet, basically down to 10% of your former life. That's a massive release and a massive adjustment. And so I'm glad that you found some resources that allowed you to do it and accomplish what you're trying to get done and be out into a new space. That's wonderful. Good job.
Sandra says, my mom helped her uncle move out of the house he had shared for some 45 years with his wife, her beloved
Oh,
aunt, who had passed away too quickly due to cancer.
mm,
Because of disability combined with grief, my great uncle was unable to deal with all the contents of their house before moving to an assisted living facility. Just clearing out the basement with their sister to help took my mom 3 months.
oh man.
That was a wake-up call for a lot of people in the family. We all learned a lot about not keeping everything.
Yeah, you're describing a situation that many of us live through. Emptying a house that someone's lived in for decades really takes a troop movement to make it happen. It's a very physical job on top of how emotional it is. So much to work through and really to unwind. You need many man hours of time. So the larger the team, the faster it goes. It's not easy to unwind a full life that's lived in one place for many years. And you can't empty that out overnight. If you have a big enough team, you might be able to empty it out in a week or two. But the fact that it took 3 months to empty the basement just says to me for 45 years, they stuck things down in the basement and ignored it and never went through and released. And by the time his wife had passed away and he was of an age where he needed to empty the house, he didn't have the physical capacity to do it anymore. And the mom had to do it instead. So a hard lesson to learn. Glad it sounds like the whole family learned the lesson because they
Yeah,
must have participated in like that was just the basement. What about all the rest of the house? They had to come back and do all the rest of the house too. So somebody put in a bunch of time and they probably called in all the relatives at some point for that,
right.
right? Yeah.
Okay. Becky says, I have a close friend who's willing to recognize what is just stuff and what might be truly important. She has no skin in the game and doesn't try to talk me into keeping things, which I have found is actually unusual.
Mm. That objective point of view is really helpful when you're confronting things that make you feel sentimental or attached. If you need to declutter, you certainly need a partner who's not going to talk you into keeping things. That is the wrong partner to have if they're trying to talk you into keeping things. That person just needs to stop you from giving away things too fast out of grief. And instead, they need to be helping you evaluate whether you're likely to need this item in the future. Not out of sentimentality or against a lot of what ifs, but practical need versus what else you might already have and what might enhance your life versus what might burden it. That partner can be invaluable. And so the fact that you found someone who's able to come and do that for you, I see why you're super grateful for that. That's really, it's worth its weight in gold.
Let
Absolutely.
me share a few comments before we move away from this question.
Okay.
Uh, Gabriella said, I recently decluttered, and she put decluttered in quotation marks because what she did was she turned it from clutter back into something useful.
Ah,
She says, I
okay.
recently decluttered a UFO by completing it.
Ta-da!
I'm
Excellent.
I'm grateful for being able to wear this beautiful espresso colored 100% alpaca sweater that fits perfectly.
There you go.
The UFO had been sitting around for months, i.e., as clutter. Now that I'm able to use it, it has ceased to be clutter. The paradox, I successfully decluttered something without it leaving the house.
There you go, right? And you benefited from your own hard work. Like I know that sweater wasn't UFO is unfinished object. It's a crafty term for unfinished object.
Yeah.
So having that sweater become it was all of your hard work and you did all of this the knitting that needed to be done to make it happen and then getting it to the end and being able to wear it. That's the whole point of doing the knitting to begin with, right? And so good job that you reclaimed it. I'm so proud of you.
Um, Deborah and Jackie chimed in about Shannon Torrens. Jackie says,
Ah,
watch Shannon all the time. She's great. And
cool.
Jacqueline says Dana K. White's advice to do the dishes. That helped get my kitchen under control, which gave me back enough time to really get traction on decluttering.
There you go. Because the kitchen is so active and you have to be in it every day, several times a day, and ignoring the kitchen is just destined to become a mess. So if you can conquer that reluctance to get the dishes out of the way every time you use the kitchen, then you really do give yourself back some time to do focus on something else. So good job.
Okay, one more. Ginger says the Fly Lady gave me a structured plan for cleaning and decluttering in 2013.
Mm.
Marie Kondo gave me a shift in perspective to decide what to keep versus deciding what to declutter.
Yes. Prioritizing what is really valuable and important to you, what brings you joy, right? Everybody
Right,
laughs
right.
about the concept of bringing joy, but you're focusing on what brings you joy versus what is just there for, whatever reason, right? And so she allowed you to pull out the 25% that's the cream of the crop and release whatever else doesn't make that cut. It's a good point of view to shift to.
Okay, our third survey question, we asked our viewers and listeners to describe something that you're grateful for having been able to declutter and release from your life.
Mm,
And I I like this particular perspective. I think it's good to think back on, reflect back on good decisions we've made. You know,
hmm.
the mag says during the decluttering moving process, I decluttered a lot of old high school things that I had kept. I decluttered all of my high school yearbooks and insignificant other papers which I did not want to move. What a relief to let that all go.
That's a really good one. We all dragged that high school stuff around for a while, and it's a big relief to let it go. I think that as kids, while we're in high school, all of that seems super important and very of the moment, and we're not, all the experiences that we're having are all telling, and they're very monumental feeling, and
Significant, yeah.
yes, yes, yes. And so all the things that all of the stuff that mattered back then, you look back on it later and go, oh, really? I was, that was really all wound up about those yearbooks. But, you can release them when you're 30 or 40 and go, yeah, okay, they were important then and I don't need them now. So good for you for letting them go, right?
Noreen mentioned old family pictures of people I never knew.
Right? Because what's the point of those anyway? And if you don't know who they are and no one else in the family knows, the generations that are coming behind you sure won't know who they are. So, when you reach the point where no one can identify somebody in the photo, it's time to let that go, right? It's a good one to release and be happy about.
Lee says, last year I donated our artificial Christmas tree, which was very difficult to release. Wonderful memories.
Mm.
I was grateful the manager at Goodwill was willing to listen to the tree's story to pass on to the next owner.
That was very kind of them to listen. And you can imagine that a new family added your tree to their Christmas setup and they're loving it right now. So uh, just think of, you donated something and imagine in your mind the family that has it and is using it and getting some great use out of it. They got something of value from you doing that release. Sorry it was hard to release the Christmas tree, but you must have done it for a reason, and you survived and lived to tell the tale.
Becky says, so much and more to go. Selling a home and moving provides many opportunities to declutter items.
Hmm.
Selling a home with a large yard filled with oak trees that were constantly dropping limbs, a yard that constantly needed attention, or the water system that needed attention, or replacement of aging appliances and HVAC. That is a blessing to have a smaller yard with a home with new appliances. Time is more precious to us, and moving has been such a blessing for us to be able to care for our grandchildren.
That just sounds perfect. Grandkids will remember you spending time with them and love that time that they're spending with you way more than your stuff. So great that you release things that you no longer need. Great that you right sized your house to what is important to you and what you're doing right now, which is not a big house and a big yard, a smaller house and a lesser yard because you're spending your time with the grandkids instead. So I appreciate the shift in priorities there and that you made the house and the stuff match what was your new priority. Good job.
Linda C says she's grateful for clothes that I gave to a woman's homeless shelter,
That's a perfect
women's
place to
homeless shelter.
redistribute stuff, right? Like, how great. You know, those people are in crisis. You know that they're struggling, and you gave things away to somebody else to be able to use them. That's totally worth being grateful for.
C says about 90% of items and paperwork from deceased relatives.
Ah.
Also began to get a great deal of my old paperwork out and control what comes in with a new system for incoming paper.
So you can be grateful for the release and for the new system, the new paper system, both. And that can only enhance your life. I mean, when you figure out that A, you don't have to keep all the paper you inherited from your deceased relatives.
right?
There's so much paper. And the estate that I did, not this past summer, but the summer before, where the person's house, she was the last living relative of several generations, and so we found papers from the 20s, from the 30s, from the like we found the collections of all the relatives saved up paperwork in the house somewhere, and we went through it for weeks and weeks and weeks. We were shuffling through that paper. And while I found a lot of really fun ephemera for artists, I did not find a
Hmm.
lot of stuff that was really important for anybody to keep at that point. So yeah, releasing that paper, and the deceased relatives had their life, and the paperwork that's left behind is really not as important as you think it is. So glad you filtered through it and figured out a way to manage your own paper so that the people coming behind you won't be throwing away a million piles of paper from their life.
Will not get that legacy load.
Good job.
Leela says multiple SUV loads of items from a toxic narcissistic relative who lived with us for 2 decades and has since passed away.
Ooh.
I have entered a more peaceful chapter of my life now with a lot less stress and a lot less physical stuff. A low maintenance lifestyle is my goal.
Nothing like removing things that have negative associations, toxic relative and extra stress out the door and out of your life. I think, thank goodness. I'm sorry that you lived with somebody who was so difficult for 2 decades. That's a long time and a lot of stress. So I think you're due for a less stressful life. And I'm glad that you've worked it out. And, a low maintenance lifestyle after struggling with somebody who was difficult. Good for you. I'm glad that you arrived there. And I'm glad that you're releasing things. Nothing about that person needs to be in the house making you feel bad or feel a reminder of their life if they were not kind to you when they were living. Good job. Release, release, release. You're welcome.
Jacqueline says, once stuff is decluttered, I don't generally think about it anymore.
Oh, that's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah,
Out the door, you don't think about it
peace.
anymore.
Yeah, peace.
Peace and calmness. And I think that, we think we're going to think about it. That's part of the reluctance to release it, is that
Right.
we think we're going to remember it all and be sad that it's gone. And the likelihood is the truth of the experience is you don't remember it all at even a fraction of what you give away. You don't remember. So no stress.
Okay,
Glad you did it, Leela.
one more on this question. Suzanne says, I'm grateful for having been able to release a 24 volume cookbook collection that just wasn't right for me.
Hmm.
It was a gift that a significant other thought I would love. I loved the generosity and the gesture, but I couldn't use it or love it even after 2 or 3 decades.
It's great that your partner thought of you and tried to find the right gift. Sometimes they miss. After decades of honoring the gift, it's good that you were able to release something that was so dense. The fact that it was 24 volumes of a book that you weren't using so someone else could use it instead. And if it wasn't your thing, I think a couple of decades in the house was well and truly honoring the efforts they put into finding a gift for you, even though it didn't. It was a miss. And good thing to release and be grateful that it's gone now. Totally get that.
Okay, for our final survey question, we asked our audience to identify something in your space for which you feel grateful, but which you'd consider releasing so that someone else can enjoy and appreciate it.
Mm.
The mag said, I have 2 old dolls that were from my grandmother. I'm considering letting them go so that someone else could appreciate them. I was grateful to receive them from her and have displayed them in my house, but now feel like they could go to a new home and be appreciated by someone else.
Absolutely. You have lived with them and loved them, and now someone else can live and love with them also. It's not, you didn't rush them out of the house. You honored the gift that you got from your grandmother, and it's perfectly reasonable that you would pass them on to someone else to play with now. Go for it. Somebody else will love those dolls. Somebody will collect those dolls and be thrilled to find them.
Kathy says, too many gift bags, too many totes with linens and cloth, too many clothing pieces. I look around and have plenty for my 70 plus years.
Same as before. You've got plenty, you live with plenty, and you can release plenty and still be living well. So if you recognize the volume is too high, it's time to release right size the volume and release some of the excess down to what you feel comfortable living with now.
Barbara says, I'm grateful for the cedar chest my grandma left me, but I'm happy to release it to my sister.
Share it around the family. You've had your time with it. I think it's perfectly reasonable to send it off to your sister and let her have it instead.
Sarah says, I got a cool vintage lamp, but really don't have space for it.
Ooh, and someone else will have the perfect place for it. It's time to put it in a resale shop and to let someone collect it that will actually love it. That's the kind of stuff that is perfect for a resale shop because somebody will be in there looking for exactly the lamp that size and shape to go in some place in their house, and there will be your lamp ready to go home with them.
Let's see. Danetta says, I have a couple of oversized pieces of furniture that do not function as well as I had hoped. I've used them for years, but I am ready to give them away and buy smaller solutions.
You definitely should shift to the smaller solution for sure. Once oversized is too big, it's time to release them into the wild. Big oversized furniture has a large footprint. It takes up a lot of space, and you can get some of that space back just by changing the size of the furniture that's in there. Good thing to do.
Over over large furniture is a particular struggle of mine. We bought these things to put in our to create closets in the little house we were renting before we lived here. We bought these
Hmm.
enormous things that filled the space almost floor to ceiling, and
To make cabinetry,
that were yeah they were big.
like
They were
wardrobe things.
yeah they were kind of wardrobe things. They were odd. I guess they were really designed as sort of entertainment center or workstation.
Oh,
So
okay.
they had drawers things that rolled out, slid out, and places you could put a monitor and all sorts of things like that.
Right, right,
And
right.
like the whole 4 years that we owned them, I constantly thought about what is it going to take to get rid of them, because they're so big, they were so heavy, they were so much trouble to move, they were so much trouble to reassemble once we got them into the space.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was so delighted that we found takers to haul them off.
Oh, so you had somebody come and take them?
We did, yeah. And
That's
they
awesome.
did all the work.
Yay.
Yes.
That's worth it.
Let's see. Judy says tools from my dad.
It's really hard to release someone else's really valuable collection, but if it's not a collection that you would use, then it's time to release it to the next person who's collecting now. I think anybody that puts a lot of time and energy and effort into accumulating category of stuff. Like my bead collection is an example. Nobody in my family is going to want my bead collection at the end. It's valuable and important to me, but I know that it's not going to be valuable and important to the people that inherit it. And so that's an example of, yeah, the value is with the person that accumulates it, not with the person who inherits it. So you have to look at it and go, if is this I know it was valuable to my dad, but is it something that I care about? And if you don't, if you're not into tools like he was, then he got the use and lived and loved his collection. He had his experience with the collection, and you don't have to keep having that same experience with the collection. You can say that was dad's focus and dad's joy, and it's not mine. And you can release it to the next person and let somebody else that's collecting tools have access to some of his cool tools.
Well, and tools are all about the usefulness. So
Hmm.
the idea of keeping tools as a sort of sentimental collection, if you're not a tool user,
Yeah, if you're not into it.
it you know it you're doing you're honoring the original owner better by giving them to someone who will use them,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
donating them to someone who can use them.
Yeah.
Uh, Johanna says pretty much anything that is just a backup. I just gave a bed frame that is only used as a guest bed to a friend who's moving into her first apartment. She will use it every day. I never have guests.
And that's the perfect release, I think. We don't need as many backups as we think we will. So great that you took a piece of furniture that you were just making space for in your house that wasn't really getting used and giving it to somebody who's going to use it every day. Good job.
Ellen says my lawn chair that I haven't used in 3 years, my folding wagon that I haven't used in a year, my
Right?
microscope.
Oh,
It is a good quality, hasn't been used in years, but I don't want to see it abused. The lawn chair and wagon might come in handy on occasion, but I have no purpose for the microscope.
so the microscope needs to go to a high school science teacher. Truly, the school budgets make it hard to get equipment like that. Someone in a high school or a college lab will appreciate and use that microscope every week. So you just need to find a local science teacher that can add it to their, teaching environment, and they'll be happy to have it.
Okay, and Becky says my remaining DVD collection. I got rid of most, but kept some of my favorite movies. Interestingly, I haven't watched any of them in years. Maybe time to let go?
It might be. You can totally let them go if you want to now. You can make a list of or photograph the titles so you know what was on your favorites list and then release the DVDs. If you want, pop one or two of them into the player and watch them again before you release them. But you can always rent them digitally in the future if you feel the need to see them again. So release and be happy. It's time to let them go.
Okay, we are just about out of time, so let's talk about next week.
Okay?
We are going to be back next Tuesday at the usual time. That is November 18th. And we're going to talk about decluttering to prepare for injury, illness, or disability. This is something that, can happen to any of us or, in our families. And so we're going to talk about what you can do to plan ahead for these things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, why don't you give us the title?
Okay, this week's weekly tittle. How much backup do you need? This week's assignment is to evaluate items for which you're keeping backups in an effort to right size your stashes instead. So identify a few categories of stuff for which you've kept one or more backups. Areas that tend to accumulate a lot of backups include small appliances, linens, dishes, God, dishes, kitchen equipment, pantry, certain categories of clothes and toiletries and other personal care items. Answer the following questions about each item. How often have you had to rely on the backup? How many backups do you need for the category in question? For example, you could use a second vacuum cleaner if your primary one breaks down, but what's the likelihood that you would ever need a third vacuum cleaner? And I have seen that. How much storage space do the backups require? And what cost or effort would be involved in replacing the primary item if you didn't have one suddenly? Reflect on whether you might safely reduce the number of backups you're keeping for any of the categories you've considered. Decide on the number of backups you're comfortable keeping, and then discard, give away, or donate any backups that exceed the limits that you've set. I think recognizing how many things you're keeping as a backup
Mhm.
is an important focus of I have multiples of this. How many of these multiples can I possibly use? And why do I feel the need to keep as many backups as I have? And that'll allow you to find some of the excess, peel some of the excess off, and deliver it on to someone else to use.
Okay, if you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love for you to join us live. To get notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by visiting cfhou.com/Facebook or join our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from our audience, so please keep your questions, comments, and topic suggestions coming on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere that you find us. You can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you coming and listen to us talk about organizing things every week, and we will look forward to seeing you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.